In the Gun, episode 26, it's time to talk a little college football playoff title game. We've got the national championship coming up, and we've got a special guest from TCU that's going to join us in just a few minutes. I'm Wes Uhler with the best teammates in the business, the runaway beer truck, Owen Schmitt, and the signal caller, Jed Drenning. This episode of ITG brought to you by our friends at Bet Online. Bet Online remains your number one source for all your sports betting needs this season. Everything from the NFL to bowl season to even esports. You'll always find the latest online odds, team matchup information, player news, and game trends at Bet Online. Bet Online features live betting, free contests, and live scores for almost any sport or game imaginable. It's the fastest and easiest way to bet all your favorite leagues and events. So head to betonline.ag to join and receive your 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure to use the promo code BELIEVE when you sign up to receive your rewards. That's BLEAV at BetOnline, where the game starts. Gentlemen, headlines here. Probably the biggest headline of them all in the football world. I just wanted to make sure we took a moment here to say that all of our thoughts and prayers are with Damar Hamlin, young man from Pittsburgh, obviously defensive back for the Buffalo Bills. A scary, tragic incident on Monday night that led to that game being postponed, potentially canceled. We have obviously seen, it's football, we've seen a lot of gruesome, scary injuries over the years, but someone to have to be life-saving measures, CPR on the field, certainly a little different territory there. So all of our thoughts and prayers here with Damar Hamlin. Wanted to make sure we said that as we get started here. As it relates to some WVU headlines here, Jed, we have a new wide receiver coach.
Yeah, we do. Bilal Marshall, he was on staff here in a different capacity, helping out with the offense not too awful long ago. Heck of a receiver not too awful long ago. Young guy at Purdue, just 2015, 2016. I was recently watching some of his highlights, but he's more recently been the receivers coach at VMI. Nice little recruiting background that he's already established. So welcome him aboard, and I'm sure he's going to hit the ground running.
Yeah, absolutely, and some work for him to do right away. As you're losing your top four receivers to the draft and to the portal from last season. But yes, good to have Bilal Marshall back in the fold, and we will hope for all the best going forward here. Speaking of some of those former wide receivers, we now know of two Mountaineers who have been invited to the 2023 NFL Combine just a little over a month from now at the end of February. Bryce Ford-Wheaton on offense and Dante Stills on defense. Big O, it's time for those boys to go show out in Indy here in a few weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. It brings me back to my times when I was going through that whole situation myself. They just got to make sure they're prepared and ready and strut their stuff, man. For those two guys, especially Bryce, in my opinion, he's got a lot to kind of prove at the combine, so he can really do a lot of damage there as long as he puts the work in these next couple weeks and really shows out. And same thing with Dante. I mean, he's obviously proven himself on the field. And for him, he just needs to come in, do his thing, just to be strong, keep up the football stuff, and run a good 40 time. Obviously, everybody knows that's kind of the coup de grace there.
Gotta move.
Yeah, gotta move. Gotta be able to move, man.
They both have some Adonis to them. You know what I mean? These kids, both of them have always tested well. Their measurables have always been there. I think this is the kind of environment or setting where they could really light some things up and open some eyes. And of course, Wes will be out there. So
I will be.
We'll be broadcasting from Indy through Wes. So
That's
you might
right.
just have a sit down with a couple of former
That's
Mountaineers.
right. We'll have some cool content. Absolutely. I get some cool access out there. And it can be tough at times to track some of these guys that, like, for example, my first combine was 2018, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't talking to Kyler Murray. It just wasn't happening. Like everybody wants to talk to Kyler Murray, but I was able to get a few minutes with Will Grier, able to get a few minutes with Sills and some of those other guys that were there as well too. David Long, I believe, was one of the others. So last year was able to chat with Letty just for 2 minutes, 3 minutes. So hopefully we will have some cool, unique content that will come out of here for you for the combine. BFW and Dante both invited so far. We'll hope for some more. We'll keep you updated on that as we roll along. Last, before we go here in the headline game, all right, I got to get my joke in here, and that's this. Jimbo Fisher, obviously head coach of Texas A&M, Clarksburg, West Virginia, native former coach of Jed Drenning as well, too. I mean, all the ties here.
What a man.
The reports are that Texas A&M is hiring Bobby Petrino. Yes, that Bobby Petrino to be their next offensive coordinator, to run the offense there. And just, Jed, the joke I got to make, Owen, I think you'll like this too. It's from the movie The Departed. All right, Jack Nicklaus's character in The Departed. In the beginning, he says, "You make good grades? And so did I. They call that a paradox." Well, hiring Bobby Petrino to save your job, they call that a paradox.
Guys, Bobby Petrino has been in my life. Rich Rodriguez's first postseason victory was against Bobby Petrino's dad, who was a coaching legend out at Carroll College in Montana. And we beat him out in Helena, Montana, his first playoff win. Yeah. Anyway.
That's awesome. Well, we got to get going here because in our next segment, we've got a really special guest for you. He's the Jed Drenning of TCU. Yes, the sideline reporter.
Like that.
The sideline reporter for the Horned Frogs, Landry Burdine, will join us on the other side as we'll talk all things college football playoff national championship game. We'll do that when we return in the gun.
I'm talking with J.R. Toothman of Toothman Ford. J.R., everybody knows a lot of pro athletes buy from you. What's the secret?
Just like Will Greer, future Hall of Famer Frank Gore, James Washington, and many more pros, these guys have financial advisors that are always looking out for them to save time and money, and that's why they always shop at Toothman Ford.
And what if you're like us regular folks that don't have people giving us advice?
You don't need a financial advisor. Toothman Ford will save you time and money no matter who you are. Plus, we'll buy your car even if you don't buy from us. Visit ToothmanFord.com and get a quick, instant cash offer.
That sounds like a score to me.
That's right. And as always, we'll take anything in trade from chicken wings to Super Bowl rings.
Toothman Ford's got a lot of fans. Here's another one, Dallas Cowboys QB Will Greer.
This is Will Greer, former West Virginia and current NFL quarterback. And cars really do cost less in Grafton at Toothman Ford.
That's a fact, Will. Thanks. You can shop online anytime at ToothmanFord.com.
Let's go, Mountaineer fans. You're tuned in to In the Gun with Wes, the Runaway Beer Truck, and the Signal Caller.
For nearly 20 years, Fortis has been the nation's leader in providing guaranteed roof performance programs for commercial buildings. Fortis offers roof performance solutions that feature extensive initial and ongoing reconditioning for commercial buildings as an alternative to traditional replacement, with long-term performance guarantees that are backed by global leader Lloyd's of London. Fortis offers a comprehensive range of roof performance management programs that provide financial security, extend the life of our customers' roofs, and make a significant impact on ROI. Fortis is currently improving performance and increasing ROI for customers at more than 4,800 locations, with more than 140 million square feet protected, including many Fortune 500 companies that have turned to Fortis to save money, gain financial certainty, and extend the life of their existing roofs. Fortis has helped customers save more than $520 million in capital roof replacement costs for an average ROI of over 250%. To learn more, visit fortis.us.com. Fortis, roof performance and financial certainty guaranteed. Back in the gun here, and we've got a special treat for you. We've got a national championship game in just a few days. Of course, Georgia, the Bulldogs, against our own Big 12 brethren, the TCU Horned Frogs. Joining us now, a guy who knows a little thing about TCU, Landry Burdine. He is a former TCU safety and team captain. He's currently, and I don't mean this as an insult, Landry, he's the Jed Drenning of TCU football. All right, he's the sideline reporter there. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
Yeah, Wes, no problem. And I like to refer to myself as the Aaron Andrews of TCU football.
There you
so
go.
whatever, whatever Jed wants to call himself, that's fine. But yeah, Jed and I both have faces for radio. It's obvious why we do what we do. So yeah, no doubt. Good to be on with you guys, man. I always got time for my West Virginia buddies.
And now, guys, I was telling you during the break, when I thought about who could provide some insight for this national championship game, TCU, the Dogs of Georgia. This is a guy who he swam in that soup right there in the middle of all things TCU. You said it, Wes. He was a team captain. He was a weak safety for Gary Patterson. So through the years, what Gary Patterson's done defensively, as unorthodox as it might be with that match 4, I always loved breaking that down and tearing it apart and studying it. And Landry's a great resource because he gets it. He sees the inner workings of the game. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to get you on here and throw a couple questions your way. I mean, first of all, guys, we'd be remiss if we didn't start with the Max Duggan story, right? You're talking about a kid who, in an age where everybody likes to take their ball and go home, this kid wasn't even starting coming into the season, right? Chandler Morris had won the job in camp, going into the Colorado opener. He stood tall when he was patient. He waited his turn, and the rest is history. The numbers he's put up, the grittiness that he's shown. He might not be the Heisman winner, but I think he's the in the gun Heisman winner. We all agree with that. He's our guy. So walk us through behind the scenes how that story is unfolded, what he means to that football team.
In short, everything. He means literally everything to that football team. I don't know if you guys caught post game after the Fiesta Bowl, but he and I got to catch up, and it was a little emotional for both of us. And I looked him in the eye and I told him he's the best damn competitor I'd ever seen in my life, and I meant it. And I've been around some good ones. I really have. I played with some guys that were some gutsy dudes, and that guy. I don't know what it is about him, man. He doesn't quit, and he will do whatever it takes. He will will his team to victory, and that's a special guy. There's not many like that, man. And the other part of it is the humility that he brings along with that drive. That's also unique, especially today. Today's culture and today's athletes a little bit different. Not that they're not tough and not that they're not driven, but it's rare to find a guy that starts as a freshman, starts as a sophomore, starts as a junior, and then comes in his senior year, his penultimate year, when he's supposed to be the dude, and he doesn't win the job. Mm-hmm. And the first time he meets with the media, because he met with the media in preseason after that announcement, he said, I'm going to be the best damn backup quarterback I can be. And they said, are you thinking about transferring? He said, no, TCU's my place. These are my guys, and I ride or die with them. And, lo and behold, halfway through the Colorado game, Chandler Morris gets hurt, and, Max steps in and does what he does. So for him to humble himself the way he did, and then to kind of be lifted up the way that he has is really remarkable, man. And I think personally it's the best story in college football this year.
What's crazy is being a quarterback at TCU. I don't think people appreciate or understand the legacy that you had to embrace. I mean, this is a school that produced Sammy Ball. The Davey O'Brien Award is named after Davey O'Brien, who played at TCU. For crying out loud, Max Duggan is trying to become the second redheaded quarterback for TCU to go to California and win a big bowl game, just like Andy Dalton did. It's a remarkable story. But Owen, what do you got for Landry?
Man, just kind of what you just said. Watching him throughout the season has been great, but his humbleness in all his post-game interviews and stuff that I've seen, at least, I mean, what a fun guy to play for. Looks like he's got so much energy out on the field. What's his kind of like? Are you there in the locker room to see kind of his pregame rituals and how he gets prepared for the game?
Yeah, I am. I'm around him a lot. He's quiet, man. He doesn't say a whole lot. Now, on the field, the thing I love about him is he doesn't take trash talk. Like, he'll put it right back on you. He'll get right back in your face. And, he's got a real hit you in the mouth mentality. You saw that in the Fiesta Bowl. I mean, he ran over the safety for Michigan at least once in the end zone. He ran over a linebacker. He's going to duck his head and go. And, he's just a very I'm trying to think of the best way to put it, man. He's a quiet leader who leads by example. And those guys are easy to follow, right? In my experience, the guys that I want to follow or the leader that I want to be is the guy that when you stand up, everybody else automatically stands up and says, where the hell is he going? Right. And because they know that guy is taking them someplace that's better than they are right now. And that's the best way I think I can sum up Max Duggan is not only is he the best leader, but the guy also committed to becoming a better quarterback. This year, he has touch on the football. He's going through his progressions. He's everything you would want a senior leader quarterback to be. Him being in New York wasn't a joke, guys. I mean, he almost won the daggone thing. And I would argue if the guys waited to submit their ballots until after the Big 12 championship, which some don't, I think he wins it. I think he comes away. It was a 2-horse race, really. And I think he wins that trophy, and rightfully so. So, he's just I don't know, man. I'm going to look back on my time doing this, and I'm going to think about some guys, right? I'm going to think about some teams. And there ain't nobody I'm going to think of more fondly than that guy. And that's probably the best way I can put it.
Yeah, he seems like an absolute dude, man, a guy you want to play for, play with. And man, I'm rooting for you guys. I think you have all the steam in this next one. So good luck, best of luck, absolutely, and thank you for coming on.
Vegas did.
I appreciate it, brother. You know, yeah, man.
Dogs, right?
Yeah, whatever. Who cares, right? Go play the game. I don't care what Vegas says. I can go off on a rant really quick if you want me to, but no, it just, like going to the Michigan game. I'll be honest with you. I did a bunch of shows, kind of from some guys up north and some Big Ten shows and stuff like that. And the question is comical to me. You guys are West Virginia guys. You know how tough the football is in the Big 12. It's tough. And the guys aren't winging it around anymore. They're running down each other's throats.
They sure are.
And it was funny. I was doing a show. We were in Florida. Last week's been nuts, but we were in Florida. I was down there with my family, and I'm driving from watching my boys play baseball to go pick up my wife and daughter at Disney. They didn't want to go watch baseball, but I'm driving and I'm on the show with this guy, and he makes a comment. He's like, I think his quote was, "How could TCU possibly think they can stand up to Michigan's physicality?" And I laughed. And I said, why? I said, you say that because there's Michigan on their jersey, not because you watch film.
Yep.
Period. Because if you watch film, you would know that TCU has been physical in every football game. They're faster than Michigan. They have played better offensive lines. I would argue that Baylor's offensive line was much better. Kansas State's defensive front was the best we saw all year.
There you go.
And not even close. And so, again, here I go off on a rant, but I just,
we're all about
the perception. Well, the perception of the Big 12 needs to change. And if the people that are given the platform to talk about the game that we love would actually watch the game, they would understand that when guys like Dave Aranda and Chris Kleiman and those guys came into the Big 12 as head coaches, the era of the aired out Big 12 was over.
Sure.
They saw the light linebacker and they said, we're going to cram it down your throat. And everybody had to adjust.
Sure
and
did.
Now there's some dudes. And that change, I would argue, is what has made TCU, given them the ability to make this run. I really do believe that those fundamental changes in defensive football are what has made the Big 12 better and has made more complementary football teams top to bottom across the Big 12. It's a really good conference. I would argue it's the second, if not the best one. So
I got one more quick question for you, but I want Wes. Wes, what do you got here for him? Because I want to wrap up with another question.
I'm good, and I'm good on time, guys. No problem.
Okay. Yeah. So what I wanted to know, kind of, we started there talking about Max. Obviously, that is the big story. But is he kind of? It feels like a microcosm of this team as a whole. Like you look across the board, there's so much leadership, right? There's so much experience, veteran savvy for TCU, and down the stretch here, Landry, I mean, you guys have won so many one-possession games. I mean, I think maybe other than Iowa State, like your last handful of games have all been close, overtime, down to the wire, one possession. Has it felt like a group that has the savvy, has the experience, that they just feel like no matter what situation we're in, with everything we've been through, with Max, with the talent we've got here, we're going to find a way? Is that something that just feels like, occasionally you get a group where it all comes together and this is that team?
Yeah, see, it's the guy that gets it. I love it. Yeah, I mean, so it goes back to my last point about people not knowing what they're talking about, right? TCU has, let's just run through the senior leaders on the team, right?
It's insane.
Max Duggan, Quentin Johnston, Kendre Miller, Darius Davis, Wes Harris, Steve Avila, basically our entire offensive line, basically most of our secondary linebackers, our team. So when you look at a senior-laden team like that, they're going to be able to handle chaotic environments like the Fiesta Bowl a whole lot better than one that's not. Michigan, they're younger, and they're going to be able to handle stress. And because they've seen it all. You've been able to fight through those battles. You've been able to do those things. So you're not surprised, and honestly, you just don't care. You're like an old grizzled veteran. It's like when your kid's driving you nuts. You're just with your first kid, it bothers you a little bit. By the time you get to the third one, you're like, "We're good, right? I know what I'm doing." And this is the same way. So I think that's a really astute question, and I think that's one of the reasons the Frogs are where they are. Kind of makes you panic a little bit for next year, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So,
Landry, to me, when I look at the matchups in this football game between TCU and Georgia, okay. There's going to be some things that grab the headlines and grab the flash, right? We talked about Max Duggan at length. We've talked about Quentin Johnston at length. We know from a big play standpoint, you guys lead the country in 50-plus yard plays, okay? But the beauty of it is the way you've evolved offensively. I think you're now in position to, if somebody puts a lid on things defensively, you can still grind it out. So I got two questions for you. Number one, the matchup between Jalen Carter and the interior of that Georgia D line. He's expected to be a top 5, top 10 pick. When I see what they're doing, I see a Siaki Ika kind of kid from Baylor. Okay, the interior, what Baylor did. Now, Baylor didn't get a lot of penetration against you guys, but they kind of held you by the collar in the run game, held you to your lowest total for the season. Now, when you have what your O-line coach, A.J. Ricker's done with that O-line, but especially the interior of the O-line, you have a fifth-year all-conference kid at left guard, all-American kid at left guard, sixth-year all-conference kid at center, sixth-year all-conference kid at right guard. That's the matchup, right? The interior of your O-line against the interior of that Georgia D-line. Who's going to penetrate, who's going to not? And then finally, strange to say this in a game in which you surrendered 45 points, but defensively, here's how you win. And the Big 12 teaches you this too. That TCU defense against Michigan forced 3 turnovers, had 2 pick sixes, had 4 sacks, and held them 3 of 15 on 3rd and 4th down combined. So talk about how opportunistic you are defensively, and then the interior of that O-line for TCU against the interior of that Georgia defense for Kirby Smart.
Yeah, I'll start with O-line. They're so good, and they'll change some of their blocking concepts for this scheme, right? And they're really good when you have those older guys, as you know, as they're going up the line. What they're reading is not just alignment, but they're reading first movement, and that's hard to do for guys that haven't seen it a lot. And when you got Wes Harris and Alana Lee and Steve Avila, and you got those guys right there that have done it together now for a while, they're really good at it. That's the best way I know to put it. And that's why you see TCU having success running the football. Now with Baylor, what happened in the Baylor game, because that defensive front was like, look, we're going to sit here and clog gaps, and we're not going to allow you to run the football against us. What TCU said was, okay, fine, pick your poison. Max is going to pull the ball and run it, which he did. A lot of play action with him. And we're going to take some shots with our dudes, right? You're going to have to commit your linebackers up to the run in order to stop it. And when you do that, again, pick your poison. We got 5 across that we can throw the football to any one of them. And that's what makes TCU so dangerous. So while I do agree that matchup is critical, if Georgia starts winning that matchup, TCU is just going to say, okay, fine, we're going to bait you. And then and that's not to say Georgia's not going to win these battles. I mean, this is a hell of a football team. So I don't want to sound like, now I will tell you, last week, I knew we were going to be Michigan. And I told everybody I talked to about it. They all laughed at me. But this was a lot tougher because TCU doesn't have the decided speed advantage that they had against Michigan, pure and simple. The opportunistic defense of TCU, you go back and you look at games, Kansas, okay, that was a really tight ball game. Game day was there. TCU gets a stop with a fumble on the goal line as Kansas is going in. And I could think of there's 4 or 5 games where they would let the guys drive down the field, and in the red zone, when it mattered, they'd shut them down. And they did the same thing against Michigan. So I think the speed of TCU against Michigan is why they were so opportunistic, because I don't think J.J. McCarthy knew that when he turns that ball loose, that Bud Clark can easily make up that yardage and pick that ball off. That was pretty obvious. But Georgia has better speed than Michigan does. So they're going to have to create their moments, I think, underneath. And that's going to be, the matchup for me is how involved can TCU's linebackers be. Georgia's probably going to try to incorporate some concepts where they try to give them some false reads, try to get them committed, dump the ball over their head. If they won't commit, they're going to run the football. I mean, that's what I see them doing. And so it's going to be it's really going to stress these TCU linebackers. I think that's the matchup I'm going to be watching.
We put you in a bad spot if we ask you about the status of Kendre Miller.
No, you'll put me in a bad spot. Because Sonny talked about it, and okay. I think Sonny listed him as questionable. I think what I would tell you is those knees are tricky, and especially for a guy that relies on balance the way he does. I mean, he's a pro. He's a pro. He's really, really good, and he's got such good balance that when one of your wheels is a little rickety, man, it's hard. And to be able to come back in 9 days from an MCL sprain, I don't know. If you had to ask me my opinion, I don't know that he'll be able to go. But I know that he's doing everything he can to be ready to play.
Let's keep our fingers crossed, guys.
Yeah, man, he's a good one, isn't he? He's really good.
But you got a pretty good one at number 2 too. So.
Well, and behind him is you got Amani Bailey, who's just an incredible running back. I mean, you can go down the list. That running back room is stacked, and that's after Zach Evans left and went to Ole Miss. You think he wants a do-over?
Yeah. Kind of like Owen's talked about with our running back room. There's different skill sets. DeMarcado's a different kid than Miller,
Yep.
So, yeah, good stuff.
Yep. Yeah, they got some good backs.
Well, it's gonna be a lot of fun Monday night. Landry Burdine, sideline reporter, former TCU safety and team captain. Landry, thank you so much for doing this. Have a blast there in LA. SoFi Stadium. I don't know if you've been there before, but it's incredible. Enjoy that, and let's go get a victory here. Bring it home for the Big 12.
I want to field level text, Landry.
Hey, you got it anytime, and always happy to hop on with you guys. I'll make a deal with you. When the Frogs win, I'll hop on with you next week. All right?
Oh, yeah. Appreciate it, brother.
Absolutely. Biggest celebration in West Virginia for TCU.
You let me know.
Right.
Go Frogs, baby.
Thanks, Landry.
That's right.
You're the man.
Thanks, Landry. We appreciate it.
Guys. We'll see you.
Absolutely,
brother.
Oh, great stuff there. You got to love it. Again, that's Landry Burdine, sideline reporter for TCU, former safety, former team captain. I mean, you'd expect it, but he seems pretty confident in their chances. I love it.
And that their team is pretty stout. Watching them against Michigan, man, it was.
They've got grown men everywhere.
And you know what? Neither team, right, Owen? When you look at Georgia last week, when you look at TCU last week, both teams can walk away as winners, saying we didn't play our best football.
Yeah,
it's true.
And that's what intrigues me the most. Neither team played their best football, yet both beat good football teams last week. So it's very intriguing to me how TCU's defense swelled up and was so opportunistic in key moments. The 2 pick sixes, they got key stops when they had to. They won on third down. And early in the game, they were moving the chains on third down, but there was a lull about the better part of 2 quarters where Michigan had the answers defensively on all those critical third downs. And then finally, late in the game, it came back around for TCU. Take Duggan. Duggan did not play his best football game. I mean, he was under 50%. He just made big splash plays. To me, they were underrated splash plays, even on that slip screen. Owen, when he threw that screen on the 76-yard touchdown, that was an incredibly athletic play for a quarterback. I mean, to find that throwing lane, to be off balance, to deliver that football, and you knew that Michigan was playing with fire with that man coverage, and big plays were bound to happen, and that's what happened. In Georgia, the tight end room alone is scary enough to make you want to walk away, right? But stranger things have happened, guys. I'm not delusional. I recognize Georgia is what Georgia is, and it's not an accident.
Sure.
But I don't think I have Big 12 colored glasses on. I'm hoping for the best. But, if Georgia blinks, a TCU might just be there. They might just – I'm looking at it like this from a game plan standpoint, and I want you guys to jump in with your thoughts on how these teams might approach this. If I'm Georgia, if I'm Kirby Smart, okay, and I'm trying to look to slow down this TCU defense, I think back – remember that ugly Texas game that was so strange and disjointed when TCU went to DKR and they won 17-10.
17-10.
Texas only scored on defense. And, well, Texas got a ton of penetration. They had 14 TFLs, the most they've had in 5 or 6 years. They got creative with different looks. They knocked TCU off schedule, and they won on third down. Is that what Georgia's going to do? Or are they going to try and do what Landry and I just talked about and approach it like Baylor did? Swell up in the gaps, eat space, try and force the game to the second and third level and say, look, our playmakers will match your playmakers.
That would be my guess.
When one of your playmakers is Quentin Johnston and another one's Tate Barber, look, I know Georgia has NFL DBs. I get it. But you better be careful with that receiver room from TCU.
Yeah. I mean, this kind of has 2006 Sugar Bowl vibes to me a little bit.
I was just thinking that same thing.
Straight up, man. TCU's just not gotten much love at all. And it's kind of like they're the little brother, you know what I mean, that they've been kind of getting beat and the media has been kind of harsh on them. But, man, in my opinion, that game against Michigan they got some speed, man. And I don't know if it was just because I haven't watched them that closely this year, but those guys on the outside, man, and 13 is an absolute terror on defense.
Yeah.
I mean, he was making – I swear to God, I thought he made every damn tackle on on defense during the game. He was literally everywhere on that field. And I think if they come with that same kind of attitude, and listen, games aren't going to be perfect, right? I feel like the championship games, they never go the way you want them to go, right? Because both teams they're both prepared, they're both ready to go. You know what I mean? It kind of just gave me that vibe of 2006 a little bit, just because of, just what's gone on in the media. And people think that players will believe the media. They especially a team like Georgia, who's they're favored to win. They're the guys, TCU can't hang with us. Big 12, who's the Big 12?
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see the game. And obviously you can tell the confidence of the team just by
TCU,
just by listening to Landry come on and just kind of give a couple words. I mean, he's fired up. You can tell they're feeling it right now. So I'm looking forward to it, and I wish him the best. That only solidifies what I've thought, and kind of what he was speaking on is Big 12 is pretty good football, Haas.
You know what? We were ahead of the curve. In other words, we were playing great offense with great quarterbacks, with spreading the field, different versions of the air raid and spread offenses, when the rest of the country wasn't. I remember one year, Gibby's defense faced in 3 straight weeks the number 1 ranked offense in America, the number 2 ranked offense, and the number 3 ranked offense. And it was like Baker Mayfield, Pat Mahomes. So, we were putting up 40-some points a game because it's tough to stop those offenses.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, now the rest of the country is doing it. Tennessee's beating Alabama 52-49, and it's being called great football, not bad defense. Good offense is difficult to stop. The only difference is the Big 12 was ahead of the curve when it came to that, and now we've swelled up. We're kind of moving on and playing better defense now because teams have learned in the Big 12 how to defend some of those offenses. But from a matchup standpoint, Owen, you're right. What stuck out to me in watching TCU against Michigan was the speed. I mean, they seem to have a speed, just like the Sugar Bowl with you guys in Georgia. The speed is what jumped out. And when you look at Michigan, and look, this isn't an indictment against the Big Ten. There's enough of that, right? But it's not a coincidence that so many of the top-ranked defenses in America all hail from the Big Ten. That's not a coincidence, right? I mean, Michigan was asked to stop Penn State, Ohio State, and kind of a cast of thousands. When you look at their non-league schedule, Hawaii, Colorado State, UConn, I was drooling over their non-conference schedule. I'm like, are you kidding me? And then they finally face somebody with a pulse in Maryland, and Maryland threw a scare into them. So they don't face a lot of defensive challenges with those offenses, 2 or 3 a year. And when a TCU lines up with the guys in the skill spots and the battle-tested guys on the O-line that they have, that's a handful for anybody, much less a team that hasn't really consistently been tested throughout the course of the year. And when you look at Georgia, I mean, I would say Tennessee, there's 2 or 3 tests, major tests they've had. I recognize the NFL level of talent in the SEC, but when you look at schematic team offense, I mean, when you look at who Georgia has played, it's tough to sit there and say, look, week in, week out, they've had, high-level quarterbacks testing them. I mean, last week they did, and it almost cost them the football game. I submit that if Ohio State was healthy at the end of that game and not down their 2 top running backs and not down Marvin Harrison, they might have found a way to make one more play.
Yeah.
And it might be Ohio State facing TCU, but Kirby and those guys know how to win. Tip your cap. But guess what? So does Sonny Dykes and those guys. It's a heck of a matchup.
It is. And I'm telling you, I think the secret sauce for TCU is that old man strength. Like I really do. I mean, Landry laid it out there. You look at every position group, they are laden with 5th and 6th year guys, 22, 23, 24-year-old men.
Absolutely.
And they might have, they might have been 3 stars, and they might only have a cup of coffee in the NFL. Maybe they'll only have training camp. Maybe they'll practice squad. Maybe they'll make it a few years, whatever, against guys from Georgia who, will go in the top 100 of the draft and have decade-long NFL careers. But for 60 minutes on Monday night, those 22, 23, 24-year-olds lining up against 19, 20-year-olds, me, that matters. That's a real secret sauce for TCU.
When Georgia has
Buddy, that's a team.
That's a team.
Right.
That's a team. I mean, that's what a team's built on. It's not built on boys. It's built on men.
It's built on men.
And Wes, you're right. When I look at the better players populating the front seven of the Georgia defense, you got a lot of true sophomores in there.
You got a lot of 19-year-olds
going against 24-year-olds. And you know what? Here's what TCU proves. We've talked about this in this podcast before. Everybody's going to lose players in the portal. Everybody and their brother is going to lose them. What matters is who can you bring in? And you know what they did? They were smart. They were systematic. They didn't really blow anybody's skirt up in terms of who they brought in, but the guys they brought in have all helped them. Yeah. They weren't ballyhooed guys that were making headlines. I mean, look what they lost. They lost their feature rusher, a 1,000-yard rusher to Ole Miss. That kid was a stud. They lost 2 all-conference defensive ends. And what they brought in, consider who they brought in. They're notable pickups. A center from SMU. Not blowing anybody's skirt up, but he knew Sonny Dykes' system. He stepped right in. He's one of these 23, 24-year-old kids we're talking about. He mattered. A backup tight end from Texas. You telling me they haven't got a lot of use out of that kid? He wasn't exciting a lot of people when he came to Fort Worth. A Will linebacker from Navy. We just mentioned that kid's name of what he did against Michigan. A corner from Louisiana Monroe. None of these kids were guys that when they picked them up in the portal, the TCU fan base coming off a 5-7 season was saying, now we're cooking. Look at these guys. But bring them all together. And what Owen just said, they gelled as a football team. And in the modern era, you're a year away. If you pull the right strings, it might not be the strings to get all the headlines. But if you pull the right strings in the right spots, this is, exhibit A, that's how it can happen. And when you do it, look at it in the rear view. That's why they're ranked so high in terms of how the portal was played out for them.
All right, all this talking, I got to get on Bet Online right now and put some shillings on the Horned Frogs. All right, let's take a break here. It's going to be a lot of fun on Monday night. I'm looking forward to it. I really am. Those were 2 great semifinal games, which we've rarely gotten in the short history of the college football playoff here. Usually the semifinal games have been blowouts for the most part. You got 2 great semifinal games. I think we're going to get another great national championship game on Monday night. Thanks again to Landry for joining us. Final break here. When we come back on the other side, we, of course, we did a lot of different predictions and projections throughout this season. We did an entire bowl game pick'em with, 44 different bowl game picks
41.
We did, Jed? 41 different bowl game picks. So we're going to hand out our inaugural ITG Cup. We went in, we sent the statisticians into the booth to crunch all these numbers and formulate, all right, who did the best with all this year. We will unveil the inaugural ITG Cup, wrap up this edition of In the Gun when we return on the other side. Wes Uhler, Jed Drenning, Owen Schmitt. It is ITG.
Game day got you on the go? We get it. GoMart is here to keep you going all season long with stores throughout our home state. We're a proud West Virginia-owned company, and our friendly staff is committed to serving our communities. From fuel to freshly brewed coffee and snacks, a stop at GoMart to cover your game day needs is always a touchdown. Plus, GoMart Rewards members earn points with each purchase to redeem for discounts on gas and free items. So stop by, start saving, and stay on the go with GoMart.
It's like the Blue Lot, but with better gifts. All the cool kids are hanging out at itgfootball.com. Check it out.
For nearly 20 years, Fortis has been the nation's leader in providing guaranteed roof performance programs for commercial buildings. Fortis offers roof performance solutions that feature extensive initial and ongoing reconditioning for commercial buildings as an alternative to traditional replacement, with long-term performance guarantees that are backed by global leader Lloyd's of London. Fortis offers a comprehensive range of roof performance management programs that provide financial security, extend the life of our customers' roofs, and make a significant impact on ROI. Fortis is currently improving performance and increasing ROI for customers at more than 4,800 locations, with more than 140 million square feet protected, including many Fortune 500 companies that have turned to Fortis to save money, gain financial certainty, and extend the life of their existing roofs. Fortis has helped customers save more than $520 million in capital roof replacement costs for an average ROI of over 250%. To learn more, visit fortis.us.com. Fortis, roof performance and financial certainty guaranteed. Well, how about that? Great stuff there from Landry Burdine. Thanks to him again. All the best to TCU as they play Georgia, the defending national champions, who have won a lot of football games in a row and have a lot of things going for them. But I don't think it's fair to call it David versus Goliath. TCU certainly an underdog, but that'll be, I think, a good one down there in Southern California on Monday night. All right, gentlemen. Yeah. As we wrap this up, Jed, as in your tireless quest for podcast perfection and your refusal to ever get a good night of sleep, you came up with a pretty darn good idea here. It's the first annual ITG Cup, and we did a lot of different picks, predictions, competitions throughout the season. So, Jed, this was a three-prong competition here that you crunched the numbers, came up with the formulas to award our first annual ITG Cup champion. How did this play out? Tell us how you got here and how all the numbers shook out here.
I think the last thing in the season left to choose or pick or anything else, and it sounds like we're kind of all in lockstep with this. TCU, heavy underdog, 12.5 points against Georgia. I don't know if it's my heart, my brain, or both, but I'm feeling the Frogs. It sounds like you guys are. You correct me if I'm wrong, but is anybody going with the Dogs here? And
I'll go with the Frogs. Listen, they proved me wrong. I was in on Michigan. You guys both picked TCU. I picked Michigan. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, I'm not going to get fooled again. Let's go Frogs.
Nothing to me. It would be an immaculate story to say the team that won the national championship couldn't win the Big 12.
That's a great.
It'll be a great narrative.
That's an SEC-esque story, isn't it? Yeah,
that's right. So, with all the choosing now behind us, okay, what we actually did pick throughout the course of the season, we broke it into three categories: week in, week out. We picked Runaway Beer Truck of the Week, Signal Call of the Week. You picked your Defense of the Week. We kept track of that. We tallied that, see who finished in first, second, third. Then from that, we got into Conference Title Weekend, and we had the 10 conference championship games, and we tallied a score in that to see who finished first, second, third. And then finally, we had the 41 bowls that we all picked, okay? So you earn a score in each of these three competitions, okay? First place gets you 3 points. Second place gets you 2. Third place gets you 1, okay?
Sure.
So we'll pull the graphic up and announce our champion of the year for the 2022 inaugural ITG Cup, Wesley Uhler. And here's how the scoring broke down. Weekly picks, you finished first. Conference title game picks, you finished second. Bowl picks, tied for second. And that was good enough. Again, do the math. 7 points. Close battle. Owen and I tied for second with 6 points. Now, here's how crazy all this is. It all comes down to one or two things.
Sure.
I was the only one that picked Penn State in the Rose Bowl. You guys picked Utah. If Utah had won, Owen and I wouldn't be tied.
That's right. That's right.
So that's how crazy this is. So that moved me into a second place tie with you and earned me the points.
That's fun.
So it was a lot of fun ride. But you were the model of consistency. You never finished. Owen and I both finished in third and it zinged us, in one of the competitions. Everybody finished at first in something. Owen won the bowl picks.
I think that's good. We all finished first in something. We all got our different areas of expertise here. How about that?
If you want to call it that, I don't know if I was.
Yeah, I don't know if I would call it that.
Games, but that's...
Just trying to give us some credit. I was trying to give us
but a fun ride it was.
And... I appreciate you putting this together to give me a chance to humble brag. The graphic was just up on the screen a minute ago. I also appreciate you using the Photoshop of me as Kirk Cousins with the chains over my neck. That looks like a championship celebration I'm taking part in there.
It's like a championship necklace, you know?
Yeah.
Like you're wearing your gold, to the victor go the spoils.
It's like I'm at the parade, right? It's like I'm standing on the bus shirtless at the victory parade, 37 Budweisers in my hands and ready to raise the ITG
I was
trophy.
Disappointed I couldn't find a graphic to incorporate that had something to do, like the Shazam movies always talk about he's our champion. And I thought I'd find something there and put your head on Shazam. I couldn't find anything. So
that's good. That's good.
All this stuff's put together like a ransom note anyway. But
well, you know what, Jed? This is the first edition of the ITG Cup here. All right, we can workshop it. We can Photoshop it going forward. But that's good stuff by you. I love that you brought that into the fold here. When I saw the graphic, I was cracking up. Hey, 1 year, one football season in the books, gentlemen, and here's to many more, as this is our first episode of the new year as well, too. Episode 36 here, brought to you, a reminder, by our friends at ITG. Folks, NFL playoffs coming up, college football national championship. You got basketball and hockey and all kinds of stuff in full swing. It's a great time of the year to be a sports fan. BetOnline.ag for all of your gambling needs. Gentlemen, this was fun. This was good stuff. Thanks again. I know I've said it like 3 or 4 times already, but seriously, thanks again to Landry Burdine for joining us. Jed, big shout out to you for setting that up. And hey, we got him. The record shows here on the podcast audio side and on the video side. If TCU wins on Monday, he's got to come on with us on Tuesday or Wednesday or whenever it works for him. We'll make it work to talk about it.
Dude, I wouldn't be surprised if Brian Estridge ends up with him. The play-by-play guy for the Frogs. I don't know if you guys have ever met Brian, but he's a character just like Landry is. That's a fun crew. That's a fun group got down there. And we got some good crews around the Big 12. We really do. A lot of these people I first met through Tony, but Landry's one of those guys who we hit it off right out of the gates, and we're texting X's and O's. And so
that's awesome.
He's a fun guy. So last episode was episode 35. It was the Runaway Beer Truck episode.
Yep.
Does that make this the Caden Beiser episode? Right.
It sure does.
Sure
does. Works for me. We're starting to get into some strange territory with the numbers here.
I played with Sean Beiser. I had to give Caden a shout out. Right. I played with Pops. Yeah.
There you go. I love it. Gentlemen, good stuff. Happy New Year. We will, I'm sure we'll all be texting during the game on Monday, and we will have a recap, a breakdown of the college football national championship for you next week after this all plays out. And we sadly say farewell to college football for about 7 or 8 months there. So we'll do all of that next week. Everybody enjoy the national championship game, and thanks again to Landry. We'll talk to you next time. For Jed Drenning and Owen Schmitt, I'm Wesley Uhler, and you've been in the gun.